everyone, I'm Janae Odani, and I'm the Extension Veterinarian with the University of Hawaii at Manoa College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. This video will cover the basics of biosecurity for poultry flocks. So what is biosecurity? We've all heard this term before, but what does it really mean? The purpose of biosecurity practices are to prevent the introduction and spread of infectious agents to poultry and to minimize the incidence and spread of diseases of public health significance. Diseases can be spread in a number of different ways, from introducing new poultry onto your farm, from other animals that may enter your farm, such as wild birds, vermin, such as rats or mice, or even insects. People themselves can be a source of disease onto your farm, whether it's your own workers or visitors. Borrowing equipment or purchasing used equipment can be a source, and vehicles such as trucks or cars. Some diseases can be spread through the air via aerosols or dust. Other diseases can be transmitted through contaminated water and feed. And finally, litter and waste can serve as a repository for disease. After the devastating losses due to highly pathogenic avian influenza in 2014 and 2015, the USDA developed the 2016 High-Path AI Preparedness and Response Plan. The key component to prevent or reduce outbreaks was biosecurity. These are the steps that you will take to implement your biosecurity management plan. First, you will develop a written biosecurity plan. The website poultrybiosecurity.org has some templates that you can use. The flock management plan will be a part of that, and you will need to develop standard operating procedures as a part of these plans. Lastly, all of your personnel will need to be trained on these. As you design your personalized biosecurity plan, you will need to consider the following factors: the location and layout of the farm, your feed and water sources, the disease status of the area, the livestock or wildlife in the area, and the types of interactions between the farm and the public. Now we'll go through each of the 14 parts of a biosecurity plan. The first step is to determine who is going to be responsible for the plan. This person must be knowledgeable in the principles of biosecurity and will review the program each year and make any necessary revisions. However, all farm personnel, not just the biosecurity coordinator, are responsible for the implementation of the program. Training on the farm-specific biosecurity plan and procedures should be done once a year. This training needs to be documented. Anyone that regularly enters the perimeter buffered area, more on this to come, must complete this training. New workers should be trained upon hire, and all of the staff should know where or how to access the biosecurity manual. The line of separation is the functional line that separates the poultry houses and birds from exposure to potential disease sources. Place foot baths at entrances to the houses, and remember that they must be inspected daily and replaced when it accumulates excessive organic material, which will decrease its efficacy. All personal items that cross the line of separation must first be cleaned and disinfected. This includes cell phones, jewelry, or other electronics. One trick that I use is to put these items in a Ziploc bag that can be disinfected without damaging the materials inside. The perimeter buffered area, or the PBA, in this diagram is shown as this light blue area. The PBA is the functional zone surrounding the poultry houses that separates them from areas unrelated to poultry production on the site. For example, the employee and visitor parking and the public road. Entry to this area should be controlled with a gate, and biosecurity signs should be posted that direct visitors to stop and contact the producer before entering. You should have procedures for farm personnel and visitors entering the farm. At the minimum, hands should be washed or sanitized before entering and upon exiting the house. A visitor's log must be created and maintained. Visitors must be sure to wear clean clothing and should either thoroughly clean and disinfect their footwear or wear boots that you provide for them to wear while on the farm. Personnel should always work from the cleanest, lowest risk areas to the highest risk areas. In general, this might include working with chicks and younger birds first and quarantined or sick birds last. Sick people, especially those with flu-like symptoms, should not have contact with poultry. And it's a good idea for people who work with poultry to be vaccinated yearly for influenza. You should have procedures in place for all personnel who have had recent contact with other poultry or avian species before entering the perimeter buffered area. In general, workers should not own any poultry or any other type of bird. Procedures can be modified during active disease outbreaks and should also address workers who travel and may come into contact with livestock, poultry, and other birds. It is very important to have control programs for wild birds, rodents, insects, and other animals. Houses should be constructed so that wild birds and other animals cannot enter. Inspect feed upon receipt for evidence of contamination, and try to keep the surrounding areas clear and clean to minimize attracting critters. Equipment and vehicles must be cleaned and disinfected before entering the perimeter buffered area and houses. Have protocols in place to reduce the risks associated with sharing equipment or vehicles. Any vehicle should be considered dirty until they have complied with the on-farm biosecurity requirements. They must obtain permission before entering, and for these reasons, vehicle access and traffic patterns should be well defined. Dead birds should be collected daily and stored and disposed of in a manner that doesn't attract birds, rodents, insects, and other animals. Take care to avoid cross-contamination from other facilities, for example, if you're hauling to a landfill. For a number of reasons, on-site disposal is recommended. Manure and dirty litter should be removed, stored, and disposed of in a manner that prevents exposure to disease agents. If you are composting manure and litter, try to avoid areas near poultry and personnel or vehicle traffic. On-site storage should limit the attraction of birds, rodents, insects, and other animals. New birds should be sourced from health-monitored flocks that are in compliance with NPIP guidelines. They should be transported in equipment and vehicles that are regularly cleaned, disinfected, and inspected. You should inspect all newly arrived birds for signs of diseases and, regardless, isolate them for 30 days. If you observe any unusual signs of disease or unusual disease trends, contact your local veterinarian, extension agent or veterinarian, or state veterinary medical officer for assistance. Drinking water should be sourced from a contained supply such as a well or a municipal system. The water should meet appropriate water standards, and please note that some diseases can be transmitted via contaminated water. So if the drinking water comes from a surface water source, some type of water treatment must be used to reduce the level of disease agents. Feed and replacement litter. Store and maintain feed or replacement litter in a manner that limits exposure to and contamination by birds, rodents, insects, or other animals. Feed spills should be cleaned up and disposed in a timely manner. That's because spilled feed, of course, will attract wild birds, rodents, and insects. Like all things brought onto the farm, fresh litter should be transported and moved in a manner that reduces the likelihood of introducing disease agents. Reporting of elevated morbidity and mortality. If you notice an increased rate of dead or sick birds, this should be reported to your veterinarian. A threshold level for action should already be included in your biosecurity plan. It's important to track track morbidity, mortality, feed and water consumption, and production data should also be recorded daily so that you can detect unusual trends which you might not notice otherwise. You must also keep records of bird movements for traceability, as well as any treatments or vaccinations. All of this information is very helpful in investigating a disease issue. Number 14, auditing. Finally, you must conduct a self-audit or review of your biosecurity plan every year. Participation in regulatory programs typically also require audits of records. For example, for the National Poultry Improvement Plan, auditing must be completed every 2 years by the official state agency. Here in Hawaii, that would be the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. For more information on biosecurity in the poultry industry, please take a look at any of these websites for more information. Thank you very much.